Hi, Bobby Nash. I just wanted to take a moment to thank everyone who voted in the Pulp Factory Awards, which were the winners were announced yesterday. I would like to uh, reiterate the winners. Ron Fortier and Rob Davis posted a video yesterday announcing the winners. Best pulp cover was for Yours Truly, Johnny Dollar, painted by Douglas Klauba for Moonstone Books. Beautiful, beautiful cover. I have a story in that issue as well. Incredible book, full of wonderful stories. So much so that Yours Truly, Johnny Dollar also won Best Pulp Anthology, and that book was edited by Tommy Hancock for Moonstone Books. A real thrill for me to be part of that book. Congratulations to all involved. The Best Pulp Interior Illustrations went to Howard Simpson for his work on Bulldog Drummond on Poison Ground for Airship 27. Howard did some beautiful work. This is, I believe, it was his first published work. So way to start off right out of the gate, Howard. Congratulations. The best pulp short story was The Death of Robin Hood by my friend Ian Watson from The Legend of Robin Hood, also published by Airship 27. Ian writes some fantastic tales and has written several Robin Hood tales. You should definitely check those out. And last but not least, I'm very excited to announce the best pulp novel was my novel, Nightveil, Crisis at the Crossroads of Infinity, published by Prose Press. It takes the AC Comics character. It does a brand new novel story with her. This was a dream come true gig for me. Anyone who's heard me talk about the book, I fell in love with the character when I was in high school in the 80s. I discovered Nightveil in the AC Comics realm and just fell in love with the character. And it's like, I remember telling one of my buddies in high school, I was like, I'm going to write this character one day. Took me 30 years, a little longer than I had hoped, but I did finally get to it, and so it's extremely gratifying that it won Best Novel. Thank you to all who voted and nominated and who've read the book, and I appreciate it. We're going to have links at the end of this where you can get it. It is available in paper book and ebook on Amazon. So if you have Amazon Kindle Unlimited, you can read it for free. So that's always a nice bonus. But Bill Black, who created the character, did our cover. Beautiful cover there. Tommy Hancock was our editor, and just wonderful, wonderful experience of the book. I'd like to read you a little bit off the back cover. At the edge of infinity, chaos reigns. A powerful enemy seeks to destroy the barrier that guards the crossroads of infinity, the mystical vortex at the center of the multiverse. One hero continues to thwart this sinister scheme time and time again. The mystical Maid of Might known as Nightveil. Undeterred, the villain is determined to complete her task, even if she has to kill the Nightveil of every single divergent dimension to do it. Get ready for a crisis that can bring about the end of not only Nightveil, but the multiverse as we know it. So, if you're a fan of sci-fi, superheroics, that type of thing, you might enjoy this. But I wanted to do a little short reading from the beginning of the book here. At the edge of infinity, chaos reigned. Explosions of color bloomed in a miasma of intricate patterns all around her. The colors were far more vibrant than any she had ever naturally occurred in nature or created by man. If not for the dire circumstances behind the phenomenon, the sorceress would have found it all quite beautiful, spectacular even. However, circumstances being what they were, the danger lurking behind the beauty was difficult to ignore. Whatever caused the disaster unfolding all around her, her senses told her it was not a natural occurrence. Someone did this deliberately. Someone caused this on purpose. But how? Knowing more than a bit about how the realm of magic worked, the sorceress was only one of a handful who could truly understand the ramifications of the chaos created all around her. Whoever was responsible, their power was great. It would take an extremely powerful mystic to pull off anything on this epic a scale. That limited the number of possible suspects considerably, down to only a handful at best. She personally knew of a couple of entities powerful enough to even dream of accessing this amount of raw, unfettered power, much less control it. She counted herself among that list, though she couldn't fathom ever trying to tap into the magics that would take to pull something of this magnitude. The enemy was bold, brazen, and powerful. The sorceress called forth her own magics and prepared herself for battle. A lime green force field sparkled to life around her, then quickly faded from view. Now protected by the defense screen, she pressed on. Before her, separated only by the mystical barrier, the interdimensional vortex that surrounded the Crossroads of Infinity raged. Strings of lightning-like energy bucked and heaved along the outer spiral, chipping away bursts of energy from the barrier and sending them off into the ether. There was no end to the danger that would wreak wherever they landed. What the hell is causing this? The sorceress wondered. The vortex was never what you would call calm, but she had never seen it this bad. It threatened to spin out of control. This was not her first time crossing the matter streams that surrounded the interdimensional vortex, the barrier between realities. Traversing the Crossroads of Infinity was no easy feat, but with her power she had managed it on a few occasions. Appearances to the contrary, the barrier was not solid. No solid object could contain the great vortex. The barrier was an energy field constantly fluctuating to keep the vortex spinning in place as its tendrils weaved their tapestry throughout all of the parallel and unconnected dimensions. The barrier surrounding the Crossroads of Infinity was one of the greatest unsolved mysteries of the multiverse. No one knew who constructed the barrier or how, but there were many who had dedicated their lives to finding the answer. So far, none had been successful. With careful planning and skilled manipulation, someone who knew how to wield the same magics as she did could slip between the fluctuations and safely cross over to the other side of the barrier into a neighboring dimension. It wasn't easy, but it could be done. She herself had traversed the alternate worlds on more than one occasion. In none of her previous visits to the wasteland had the vortex ever looked like anything like it did now. The wasteland surrounding the interdimensional nexus was normally peaceful, quiet, serene. The opposite of how it appeared to her now, with its surface cracked and burnt. Though never calm, the vortex was more like a thunderstorm on a warm summer's day, rather than a tumultuous scene she witnessed. What spun before her now was more like 10 Force 5 hurricanes, stacked one atop the other as they made landfall. Solar winds pushed against her as she approached, threatening to knock her out of the sky, but she managed to keep her bearings. The colors were spectacular, but also disturbing as the explosions of the spectrum assaulted her senses and threatened to overwhelm her. She could feel the pressure behind her eyes, threatening to trigger the mother of all migraines. It was almost more than the heroine could bear. Azagoth, protect me, the sorceress thought as she pushed forward. It had been a long time since she had muttered her former mentor's name, even longer since he answered, but with the overwhelming chaos around her, thinking of Azagoth helped calm her a bit. Bursts of temporal energy erupted nearby, throwing time and space out of sync. The phenomena wasn't the only relegated to the wastelands at the edge of known space, but the chaos had reached all the way back to her homeworld of Earth as well. It had started off small, as these things are wont to do. Reports of ghosts were the first indicator that something was off. Loved ones long thought dead showing up for their old jobs or coming home for a family meal. After the initial shock wore off, the reunions became a blessing to those who had one last chance to talk to their loved ones before they disappeared back to wherever they had been before. Then there were roads that suddenly went in different directions than normal, taking travelers to odd destinations. New neighborhoods popped up in cities around the world, All of these things were vexing, but nothing that caused any irreparable harm. Time, it was believed, had come unstuck, nonlinear. It wasn't until a stampede of long-tailed dinosaurs that had been long thought extinct started marching down Miami's main drag that curiosity turned deadly. The sorceress leapt into action as soon as she saw the news reports of the Jurassic convoy making its way down Interstate 95. After corralling the lost fossils where they would not be able to do any permanent damage, the sorceress made a beeline straight for the wasteland. She guessed that only a crisis at the interdimensional vortex could have created the havoc she had seen back home. She was correct. Who could be behind this, she wondered, still not believing it couldn't be a natural event. Who has the power to pull this off? She mentally checked off a list of suspects that could possibly do the damage to the barrier and just as quickly dismissed each of them. Cracks crisscrossed the energy barrier that separated the dimensions one from another. If the vortex were to break free from the barrier, there would be nothing to hold back the various dimensions and keep them from spilling one atop the other, mixing into a concoction unlike anything thousands of realities had ever seen. Pure chaos. The tendrils grew brighter, more intense, until she had no choice but to shade her eyes lest an incandescent greater than the sun permanently blind her. She needed her eyes to face down her foe. The barrier shattered. Fragments of energy broke free and scattered to the four winds, creating havoc in their wake. Others floated untethered nearby. A few fell through the hole between dimensions. The vortex pushed free of its confines and set out across the wasteland, gobbling up everything in its path the way a tornado would have back on Earth. The sorceress watched as the vortex moved away from her, off into the distance, leaving only devastation in its wake. She was about to take off in pursuit of it when she caught movement out of her peripheral vision. I'm not alone. The sorceress spun and came face to face with her enemy. You seem surprised, the enemy said as a cunning smile flashed across her face. Why? Why are you doing this? The sorceress asked. The enemy's smile widened like a Cheshire grin. Because I can, she simply said. The enemy gestured and the remnants of the barrier roared to life. Another gesture and the pieces of the barrier the sorceress had journeyed to the wasteland to save bore down on her like magical missiles made of pure energy. The sorceress tried to deflect them all, but the enemy was more powerful than she, more experienced and more malevolent. She was evil incarnate, the woman she called enemy, the polar opposite of the sorceress. Join me and I'll let you live, the enemy said, her voice sweet and light but tinged with malice. There are still many more barriers to be broken. We could take them down together, you and I, until only the one reality remains. Imagine it. Together we can rule over all. You're insane. I prefer to think of myself as a visionary, the enemy said, amused by her own humor. Go to hell, the sorceress spat. You first. The enemy's attack was violent, swift, and brutal. Eldritch beams lanced out at the sorceress from all sides, striking far faster than her mystic shields could deflect them. Unable to withstand the onslaught, her shields cracked and shattered under the bombardment, and the energy ribbons sliced through her body like a hot knife through jello. The sorceress screamed as the vortex of chaotic energy swirled about her, ripping away at her body and soul. The sound echoed across the cosmos, a melodic mixture of pain, rage, and failure. Knowing her end was near, the sorceress made one final desperate attempt to stop her enemy. There was only enough energy left for one last spell. If I can't save my dimension, maybe I can warm the next one. With her final thought, a spark of energy no larger than a marble leapt free from the sorceress and flew straight into the hole that separated this dimensional plane from its closest neighbors. Wherever it ended up, the sorceress hoped it could do some good. And then she was gone, ripped apart by the vortex. The enemy watched as the remaining energy that empowered the sorceress called Nightveil drifted away into night, nothing but stardust. The sorceress's lifeless body dropped out of the sky, igniting as it fell through the chaos storm before crashing into the graveyard that was the wasteland below. The enemy smiled. One down. And that's the opening chapter to Nightveil, Crisis at the Crossroads of Infinity. Thank you for your time. If that at all sounded interesting to you, minus my unprofessional reading skills, the book is available on Amazon. You can find it in paperback and ebook. As I mentioned before, if you subscribe to the Kindle Unlimited program, you can read this book for free, which is, pretty good deal as well. Thank you again for your time. Thank you again for everyone who nominated the book or voted for the book in the Pulp Factory Awards. I am truly honored, and thank you for your time. Have a wonderful day.